Bernard-Henri Lévy is here. He is a French intellectual and a journalist. In March, he traveled to Benghazi. Later, he encouraged President Sarkozy to take the lead on intervening in Libya. The country's first democratic elections are now scheduled for the middle of 2012. He has recently released his personal journal of the uprising in Libya. Translated into English, it is called War Without Love. I'm pleased to have our friend Bernard-Henri Lévy back at this table to talk about a remarkable opportunity he had in life to affect the course of history because it was his friendship with Sarkozy and his encouragement to Sarkozy that France could play an important role in history that even everybody now agrees and understands helped the president of France to make a decision to intervene, and then after that, others decided to intervene. So I welcome you to the program. Thank you. To see you. Why do you call it that title? Why War Without Love?
I mean that it was a necessary war, a just war, as Michael Walzer would say.
Right.
But even a just and necessary war is always awful. You cannot love war. I saw war. I saw it so often in my life. I saw it in Libya. It is disgusting. There are some victims, but nevertheless, it was just. It had to be waged. So that's why I gave this title.
Okay. Let's tell the story, even though we've reflected on it before. So you actually go to Tahrir Square in Cairo, and you're a little late for the events that have unfolded there. What led you from go there by taxi?
Not even by taxi, in a little truck, in a lorry, delivering some vegetables from Tobruk to Benghazi, each 10 kilometers. I was in this lorry of vegetables, and I wanted to go to Benghazi. Why? Because I saw, as everybody, I saw on Al Jazeera some images of the demonstrations in Tripoli with planes of Gaddafi shooting them. And this image for me was so disgusting, so terrible. The idea of this uprising, this revolt being solved in rivers of blood, which Gaddafi said, was really unbearable. So it was like an instinct. I am a philosopher and so on, but I am also a man of, as everyone, of reflex, of instinct. I had to be there. I wanted to be there.
But you wanted to be there to find out what was going on. You didn't intend to go there to somehow play a role.
No,
or not.
No. I wanted to see what was going on, and I had probably in the back of my mind, as I had in Bosnia, I was in a way, in a humble way, not the opposite of Richard Holbrooke. I did not need to have a mission. I did not need to have a mandate to try to do something and to act. I did it in Bosnia. In Bosnia, I went just to see, but I made a movie, I demonstrated, I came to François Mitterrand, and so on. In Darfur, I did the same. I went to President Chirac. I tried to convince him. So, in a way, I did that all my life, bearing witness and trying to convince the authorities of my country, and I failed. I failed in Bosnia, we failed in Darfur, I failed in Bangladesh 40 years ago. For the first time in Libya, this is life. It is strange.
In terms of the results are good.
The result was good, yeah.
Now, interesting, you just mentioned Holbrooke because you just saw me tape a conversation with Holbrooke's widow and two journalists about him and the notion of his life, and I'd reflected on the fact that he was drawn to where there was conflict and where his curiosity took him. And as you say that, I think about the time that the two of you ended up in Georgia. At a moment, and you were together because I actually told you he was going to be there, and you ended up together talking to the president of Georgia.
It is the last time I saw Holbrooke. Yeah. I went back to Europe, and he just arrived in Tbilisi, and we had a chat at the airport. And we were led by the same basic instinct. There is a place where mankind bleeds, where there is an open wound, and something has to be done if we want to be worth of being an American or worth of being a French. If we want to be at the altitude of our values, we must try to help.
Yeah, for you, not for him, but for you, what is it about you and your life's experiences that make you want to be there? Bangladesh, Georgia,
yeah,
Cairo,
yeah,
Bosnia.
Darfur, Bosnia. Probably
Afghanistan,
you know,
Pakistan.
Yeah, I belong to a generation which was raised in the memory of fascism and fight against fascism. My father was a fighter in the Republican Army in Spain, international brigades.
When you get to Benghazi, what do you see?
When I get, first of all, on the road from the border to Benghazi, I see the traces of the bloodbath having already begun. I see on the walls of the farms some splashes of blood, of summary executions. I see these sort of things. Then in Benghazi, there is an incredible, if I dare say, luck. I happen to be the first foreigner to see, a few minutes before it is really embodied, the NTC, the provisional government, Mustafa Abdel Jalil. I meet him. We know in Benghazi, the few foreigners there know that there is a secret man, Abdel Jalil, who is the secret chief of this uprising, but few saw him. I happened to meet him. And I think that he looks like a good guy. He's probably not, we don't share exactly the same values, but I recognize in him a good guy.
How do you get to see him?
By a series of circumstances, because I'm stubborn,
yes.
because I'm stubborn, because I'm a little crazy, because I never stop, I insist. I happen to see him, and in front of him, I am so distressed by the misery of these people and the weakness of this man. He has the destiny of his people in his hands, and he's completely weak. So it comes like this.
Weak in what way? Weak in that he has no power?
Alone, no power, no weapon, a few fighters.
Defenseless.
Defenseless. I saw the day before I went on the front line on Ras Lanouf, and I saw the young fighters who had never in their life had a weapon in their hands and fighting in such an heroic way. But I know that they will be completely swept away, that they will be, the Gaddafi force will completely destroy them. I see this little man, very humble, very modest, shy, Abdel Jalil, very shy. King without wanting it, if I dare say. And I tell him, if I call my president, Sarkozy, would you accept to come with me, you or some representative of you, and to see him? He said, yes, why not? And then I called Sarkozy. We did not speak since 4 years, hardly. We spoke once. We were friends in the past, but no longer since the election. So I am on
because you had supported his opponent
because I support,
had written
yes,
about
because
it.
I am a liberal, a socialist, if we. Yeah. So I called him.
You supported.
And then
his opponent.
Yes, the surprise of my life. I called President Sarkozy.
Now, did you call him or did you call his staff? And
I call him.
You call him directly?
I call him by the general number of Élysée Palace of our White House.
Yes.
I call him. I have it on the line, a sort of miracle. I tell him what happens in a few words, whom I just saw, Abdel Jalil, and I tell him, do you want me to bring him to you? He said, okay. I said...
Now, why would he say okay? Was it a time in his life that he was looking, in a sense, to have more influence and thought that this may make an opportunity? Or did he think that, what?
There are many reasons, but I think it is deep reasons, because he will say okay again in a few circumstances. 2 months after, when I will see General Younes, General Younes, the one who will be assassinated a few weeks after. Same thing. I see him again defenseless, again weak. I call again Sarkozy. I bring him in a plane to Sarkozy. We arrive at midnight on the 13th of April. Again, he received. In July, again, I bring to Sarkozy the defenders of Misrata, the martyr city of Misrata, which I believed to be able to become an offensive city and to take Tripoli. So Sarkozy has been consistent, has been constant in his will from beginning, March 5, when he receives with me the people of NTC, till the end, till July and August, when he is convinced, and when I bring him to him in order to be convinced that Misrata is the key of Tripoli. So he has had a complete consistency in that. Why? I think that he was obsessed by the memory of Bosnia.
He recognizes and confirms that it was the call from you that led to France's involvement.
Probably, yes.
Probably?
At least, yes, yeah. It played. I think it played a role, of course. And same for when I rent a fisher boat out of Misrata to go to Malta and then to Paris by plane with the commanders of Misrata. He received them, and this was decisive in the decision to give offensive weapon to Misrata. Remember, it was the time where the war was concentrated around Benghazi. The rebels advanced 1 kilometer and they lost it. Advanced, lost, like in the Rommel war, in the Second War. And then the idea came that the only way to proceed was to change the front line and to go to Misrata, because in Misrata, I went there in April. I went 6 times in Libya, 7 times. And in Misrata, I went there at the peak of the siege and of the martyrdom of the city, and I saw this incredible image of citizens, unique case in modern history, having repelled tanks with nearly bare hands. The tanks were inside the city. They really did tear the city into two, destroyed it, and the citizens repelled meter after meter the tanks. And I came back to France with the intuition that these guys, having been able to do that with bare hands, if we gave them some real weapons, they would be able to take Tripoli. And I went to Sarkozy and I told him that. And he said, okay, let's think. I told him, why should I not bring to you the guys who did that, the guys with bare hands? It is what we did.
But you also told him that blood would flow and there would be a stain on the French flag.
Yeah,
if that happened.
Yes, this was so strange for me. I'm not. France has not the same relationship than America with the flag. Right. America has a close and nearly flesh relationship with the flag. In France, no. It's the first time in my life I spoke about the flag of France. And suddenly it happened to me. When I came back from Benghazi, there was some French flags everywhere because Sarkozy had already said something about the revolt. And this is probably one of the little things which went right into the brain of President Sarkozy when I told him that. Yeah. If we don't help them, the blood of the rebels will splash the French flag. And I saw in his eyes, history, big history of humanity sometimes relies on little details, man-to-man emotion, and so on. And probably
this may have been one of those moments, you think?
It might have been. I don't know, because we never did the debriefing, Sarkozy and me, about all these 7 months.
He never reflected to you in whatever conversation you've had with him about, isn't it strange, Bernard, that we are ending up here on the same side trying to do something, because you happen to be there and because you made this connection between those rebels and a government and a person who had the capacity to do something. Never a reflection, never a personal reflection about we find ourselves on the same field, the same field of conflict.
No, because frankly...
Because there's no poetry in his soul.
No, we met so many, I think, 35 or 40 times.
Right, that's my point.
40 times, yes.
Over all that time, there was never a reflection on what this is about?
And strangely enough, it was a new Sarkozy. It was a new Sarkozy, not so open to personal feelings. The 40 times we met or spoke on the phone, it was strategic conversations, it was precise questions. He knew very well the file. Questions about America. Right. We had a long conversation one day on why Obama was so much on the back seat.
Was willing to take the back seat, that's right.
Yes, why Sarkozy
in the beginning was...
The war would have been impossible without America. Right. America gave such a huge support.
Forces, right. But after that, the president said, let them take the lead and we'll support.
Yes, so this was very mysterious for Sarkozy. So we had a human conversation on why. My theory this day was that Obama was probably paralyzed by his Nobel Prize of Peace. I told Sarkozy that maybe a president who had the luck or the misluck, I don't know, to have had in office the first year the Nobel Prize of Peace, maybe hands like this. I don't know.
No, so I don't know that that's true either.
We had these sort of conversations on Clinton, on Cameron, but on personal relationship, strangely not. In spite of the fact that we knew each other since long.
You also knew, because of Bosnia, Stephanie Powers, right? I mean
Samantha Power.
Yes.
We don't really know, but we were in contact, yes, because of Bosnia, of course, and Samantha Power in America.
Power, right. She was on the National Security Council. Of
course. And without these three women, Rice, Power, and Clinton,
yes,
Gaddafi will still be in his throne, and Benghazi would have been erased from the map of the planet. It was three women in America, a young cadet of history in England, Cameron.
David Cameron.
A cadet, David Cameron, a cadet,
right.
A man who had no historical experience, no experience of history with a big H, and Sarkozy, who took the lead from beginning to end, obviously. So it was against the public opinions. It is a very rare case, this war. Public opinion were not in favor. The militaries did not trust this operation. It is three women, two men, a few war reporters in the New York Times, in the Washington Post in France, who made this strange intellectual coalition which led to this war and to this victory of freedom against tyranny, whatever might be the peripecy, the episodes which are coming now.
I mean, if you look at what you did, how would you, who has done this kind of thing in your judgment, like you did in the role you played? What historic journalist or writer, or is it, might have had this that you might have thought we shared at least the same passion to live history?
The passion to live history, a lot of people and of writers had it. Most of them did much more than I did. George Orwell really did fight.
Right.
Ernest Hemingway took risks which probably...
In Spain,
which I probably did not. So there is a lot who made more. But I must say that this strange circumstance of a relationship between a writer and the president with repetition, because it happened many times during this month, this link of confidence, this authorization, this implicit authorization which Sarkozy gave me very quickly to
do what?
To go directly to him without going through
after the initial phone call.
After the initial phone call, there were a lot of phone calls. I received, for example, in August 20 or 21, a call from Jibril announcing me the final uprising of Tripoli, and I said it to Sarkozy. So this link of confidence, this authorization to bypass all the bureaucracies of France, this does not happen often.
So the rebels have prevailed. They are in power.
Yeah.
How will it turn out?
I don't know. Democracy is the source and the nest of the best and sometimes of the worst, of course. But my feeling is that it will turn in Libya probably better than in Egypt or in Tunisia. Think of one thing.
Or Syria, either.
Syria, for the moment, the real emergency is to get rid of Bashar al-Assad and this daily bloodbath, 30, 40, 50 dead every day. So, but in Libya, in part because of this involvement of the West, in part because of this image the West gave to the people of Libya, it might turn well.
But there's a lot of competition among diverse groups who are all part of the effort to overthrow Gaddafi.
I
There
know.
is competition for power. There's competition for influence.
Like in all democracies, it
Yeah.
is.
But it was a tribal community too.
No, yes, but not so much. There is less tribal division today than before. I saw from I was witness of that during all the time of the war. My feeling is that the common fight, the brotherhood in battles, did reduce
Gotcha.
the tribe
Right.
influence. And I relate in the book one gathering of all tribes of Libya, which was organized, of which I was witness, and so on. And that I saw the overwhelming of this tribal division. So it is not the mainstream today in Libya. And in the new government, which was formed a few days ago, how many Islamist ministers? No one. No one. There is no Islamist in the government of Libya. And one very important point is that these people of Libya saw that the old image of Al-Qaeda, of the extremist Islam and so on, of Jews and crusaders wanting the loss of Muslim world was just stupid. They saw some of the embodiments of the Jews and crusaders, like Sarkozy, and like in the low level me. They saw these people coming and giving them hand. And it completely shaped their vision of the world. I had a meeting at the end of the war with the guy who is supposed to be the most extremist in Libya. We spent an all evening and even part of the night.
Some of them were said to be former Al-Qaeda and all of that.
Yes, yes. Abdul Hakim al-Hassadi.
Yes.
I saw him in a farm away from Benghazi, surrounded by his guys, heavy weapon, and so on. And we had a strong discussion. I told him that I was a Jew. I told him that I was pro-Israel unconditionally, that for me the case of Israel, of the existence and defense of Israel, was undisputable and so on. He told me about Islam. We had this harsh conversation. At the end of the conversation, he understood that his old pattern of West against him, of Jews against Islam, might not be as true as he thought. Of course, there was a sort of, nobody convinced the other. I did not convince him, he did not convince me, even less, but at least the terrible, bloody clash of civilizations pattern, which was Samuel Huntington idea, but which was also Al-Qaeda idea. Al-Qaeda and all these guys really believed that there was a merciless clash between them and us. They saw that it was not the case. They saw us, the pilots of the French and British planes, a powerless intellectual like me, coming and helping them.
So you do not believe, as some fear, that the Arab Spring will turn into the Arab Winter?
No, I think that as all revolutions, including ours, French Revolution,
yes,
French Revolution,
especially the French Revolution,
especially, yes, there was of course terror. There was, of course, one and even two empires. Yes. There was one restoration, winter, autumn, spring again. And at the end of the day, a sort of spring in which we still are. Revolutions are like this. Even you are in a frozen history, then it is Gaddafi, Bashar al-Assad, and so on. But it cannot last for very long. At a point, it is obliged that it blows up. Or you are in real history, which is what happened in the Arab world, and then there is some internal clash, internal quarrels, Islamism against democracy, Muslim extremism against secularism. But instead of being underground, behind a frozen earth, it is open. It is a real
it's
clash
out in the
of
open,
opinions.
so therefore...
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
This is what is happening today in Libya, in Egypt also. Egypt, I know less, but it can give the worst, of course, but it can also give the best. And in any case, to have prevented a bloodbath, to have prevented what Gaddafi and his son did announce, which is rivers of blood in Benghazi, in any case, whatever can happen, this was necessary.
You assume that the son will be tried in Libya and not at The Hague, because they will not release him to go to The Hague.
I think that there will be a compromise. What I feel and what I feel, let's say, is that he will be judged in Libya under the control and with the witnessing and with the presence of people of La Hague. It will be a sort of compromise between the two, and I assume the Gaddafi death, the lynch of Gaddafi, was horrible.
The lynching.
It was disgusting, yes. My feeling is that the new power in Libya is as disgusted as you and me but by what has happened to the father, and they will certainly not
Because they want to see him on trial.
Yes,
not assassinate
and they did not want to do to him what he did to them.
Right.
This, I heard that so often from them. I spoke to most of them after the lynching of Gaddafi on the phone. I was so concerned. I was so. It was really terrible, and they shared. Strangely enough, in spite of their suffering, they shared my concern. Most of them, Jibril, of course, Zaidan, Tarouni, we were with him at this table 1 year ago, 7 months ago. They shared my concern, and that's why I cannot say I'm sure, but I really believe that Saif will have a fair trial.
All right. One last question, because it's France and because it's politics. Do you think Sarkozy will be reelected?
Do I think he will be re-elected? I think that he have a pretty good chance to be re-elected.
Do you
yes.
really?
I really believe
François
so.
Hollande cannot defeat him, you don't think?
Of course he can defeat him, but...
Has this Libya made him, helped Sarkozy in terms of the voters' attitude about him?
Apparently not.
Exactly, that's what I read.
If you see the polls, it did not add one vote to him.
Exactly.
But in another sense, you know, a democratic debate in France, exactly as in America, it ends as a body-to-body opposition. At the end of the battle, you have face-to-face two men, two bodies and two men opposing themselves, Sarkozy and Hollande. At this moment, my guess, my bet is that what is happening on the Europe debt, what did happen on Libya, which is, how would I say that, written in a sympathetic ink on Sarkozy, might appear. And he might appear as a... It is not my wish. I'm a leftist, socialist, and so on, but I feel that it might appear as a sort of signature of, I don't know, sovereignty or something like that, leadership.
Okay. Speaking of that, you're also good friends of, you're a very good friend, or a good friend of Dominique Strauss-Kahn. He is now back in France. Early on, you wrote that this could not have happened because you knew this man and you did not believe it. There is now some speculation, because of things that have come up, that this might have been some kind of a conspiracy originating in France. Do you believe that?
You know, I read the article of... in general, I don't buy conspiracy theories. In this case, I read the article in the New York Review of Books.
Edward Epstein.
Edward Epstein. I was not convinced at all. I don't believe so. No. I think it is. It might have been. I don't know, a little gang of the area of this lady, Mrs. Diallo, having trapped him for little money. This, yes, but a plot coming from France, I think it is absurd.
And the security forces and their relationship to the... Absurd. I don't think so. I continue to say that what happened to Strauss-Kahn was unfair, that this world humiliation was unuseful, because at the end of the day, at the end of the story, he was sent back to France free. So what for? This humiliation, this perp walk, this private life given to the dogs of the world, what for? So it was unfair, it was unuseful. You should just imagine the reverse. Barack Obama, during the primaries,
against Clinton, being caught in France in a possible penal thing, being arrested, all this circus all over the world, America will be a different country today. So what happened to Strauss-Kahn is a very strange history between allies, between America and France.
So if he had not been arrested in America, it is likely he would have been the next president of France.
Maybe. At least the course of history has changed. We would not have François Hollande.
We would have Dominique Strauss-Kahn.
We would have Dominique Strauss-Kahn. But this being said, I don't believe in any plot. You have always people, September 11 and so on, plots everywhere. Each time there is a mystery, you have a plot. Each time you have a very strange, some believe that there is plot. Each time there is an unexplainable story, so extraordinary that you cannot find a rational explanation, like Kennedy, and so Kennedy assassination, you find a plot. But this is a magical thought, magic thought. It is not rationality.
Right. This book called, in French, says, I'll have you pronounce it, so since your French is better than mine.
Not true. Your French is good. La guerre sans les mots.
And also called War Without Love. Okay. It will be published in America at the beginning of 2012. Thank you for coming. It's great to see you.
Thank you.